So every morning when I look in the mirror before I leave, and every morning I come home before I go to bed, I look in the mirror and I'm looking at myself and I say, what did you expect? All the things going wrong or all the bad stuff that happened, like what did you really expect? Like, did you do everything you could? Was it you or was it them, right? And usually it's me. It was my expectations. It was my thoughts. It was my mindset. It was me going down a road that I knew I shouldn't have done. It was, you know what I mean? It's usually all me looking in the mirror of who should take the responsibility of letting these types of people around me, of all that. And, and it's like, it's usually me and it's stuff I can control. And we've got to truly empower people to understand that they can make decisions. I will tell you this, and I believe this with every moral fiber of my being. I don't believe that we have a problem in the world today that we cannot lead ourselves out of.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. Please hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to have you with us for every episode, and it doesn't cost you anything, so why wouldn't you? Because we have some wonderful guests. Dakota Meyer is one of them. He won the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan, and he is the second youngest living Medal of Honor recipient, the third living recipient for either the Iraq War or the War of Afghanistan. He now has a Substack. He is really going public with a lot of his experiences, his thoughts about mental health, PTSD, all kinds of things, military, tries not to get political, but he shared some very interesting thoughts with us in this interview about the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and about some of the generals who have been outspoken about Pete Hegseth. So we're going to get into it with Dakota Meyer. Again, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. The Medal of Honor winner, Dakota Meyer, is next. Hey, Dakota, it is great to have you. We're going to talk about your Substack and your new effort, which I think is really, really cool. But before we do, I want to just talk to you about your impressions of where we are in what used to be called the Defense Department is now called the Department of War. First of all, what was your reaction to that name change? I know it sent a lot of people, they set their hair on fire about it. What did you think?
Yeah, look, I think, obviously I love our Secretary of War. I think what he's doing is the boldness, and I think he's the right person at the right time in the right job right now. I think words matter. Right? Like, I think, when we look at these things, if words didn't matter, people wouldn't get so offended over them. And so I do think that when you look at words and mentality and mindset, they all are driven by language that we use, and they are all of that is part of it, right? Words are emotional. And so I do believe that changing that name matters. And I think it's the right perspective that we're trying to give off is that we are on the offense. Nobody wins on the defense. And Department of Defense, Department of War. I think, look, I know this personally from the troops on the ground. We all love it. All the people who are going to go fight these wars for you all these people who are going to have to go put boots on the ground and who are actually going to have to go do the execution of defending freedom, love the name change.
And that's so important. And so when you hear, some of these editorial columnists like Peggy Noonan of the Wall Street Journal say, shoot, the generals, they aren't laughing. They don't like this, or, that Pete Hegseth is calling, that the secretary is saying, we all have to make weight and we all have to be healthy. Yeah. And they're not smiling. When you hear something like that, a commentary from some of the higher ups, what do you make of that? What does that mean in the whole grand scheme of the Department of War? Hey, I want to take a quick second to remind you about my good friends at besthotgrill.com. Fortunately, we have them in our corner, and that allows us to provide you interviews like today. So besthotgrill.com. They also make the best gas logs for your fireplace. If you're still burning wood, or your old gas log is overdue for a makeover, Rasmussen Gas Logs has a new look for you. They have many finishes, including detailed bark, fresh and split, weathered driftwood, and white birch. For rooms with modern or contemporary design, don't use a rustic log set. Check out Rasmussen's popular fireballs to keep your fireplace's appearance in alignment with the room's decor. A fireplace is the focal point of every room, so you want a Rasmussen gas log set or fireball to look great when the fireplace is off, too, and even better when the flame is on. Get a free personalized log set sizing recommendation and more information about USA made Rasmussen gas logs and Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com. Give them a visit. American made Rasmussen gas logs and Solaire infrared grills, USA made, at besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com. When you hear something like that, a commentary from some of the higher ups, what do you make of that? What does that mean in the whole grand scheme of the Department of War?
Well, first off, what I would like to say is the naysayers, name one person, Michele, name one general that's put their name next to it, or ex-defense. Like, first off, they're cowards. If you won't even stand next to your words, how do you believe what you're saying? Let's start with that. I haven't seen one ex-defense official or expert put their name next to these, unanimous sources, right? Or whatever they're doing, how they comment. Like, I hear a bunch of people talking about it, but I don't see any names or faces next to their words. And so I'll start with that. The next thing is I do believe that these are also the same people who created the problem that our Secretary of War is having to try to undo and unfix, right? Of course they don't like the standards, because once the standards are enforced, they have to meet them, and they have no desire to meet them. And what I get frustrated about at my level is, and have served in the military, I get frustrated that these are the same people who had no issue kicking someone out over a vaccine. These are the same people who had no issue enforcing tattoo policies, kicking out some of our hardened, most experienced warfighters over holding those standards, but then they don't want to have the physical fitness standards held. They don't want all standards to be held equal, right? Like, these are the same people that had no issue doing this.
How did it get there? Because that just seems so counterintuitive to me, that you would let someone go because they didn't have a vaccine. And as I understand, all of those people have been welcomed back into the military if they so choose. But that thinking to me was so short-sighted and so political. How do you think it got so political at the top?
I think this is something that I think it's not unique, right? It's running rampant, right? I think this is something that's always been there. I think you really drive it down to one word. It's called hypocrisy, and it's the number one thing that I think is killing leaders across the world is hypocrisy. And I think, back in the day, there used to be two styles of leadership. You could, and you think about this, right? Do as I say, not as I do. Or the do as I do, right? And so now the do as I say, not as I do mentality in a leader's role is absolutely gone. That is an extinctionist, like, that is absolutely gone. It's no longer there. People hold each other accountable. And so now you have to be the example. And so I don't think it's unique. I don't think it's something that has changed. I just think that it's not been checked in a long time. And thank God that you have this administration coming in, and that you have a president who knows how to find incredible human beings to come in and be part of the cabinet to start putting these things in check, and that are representing more of the majority of who we are. These situations are multidimensional. They are, it gets tougher every day because people are more complex today, right? Like, you have to evolve, your leadership traits, you have to evolve policies, you have to evolve the way that we're doing things, because people are getting better. They're getting smarter. Everything's evolving, technology, all these aspects. But it still comes down to the basics of, holding people to the same standard that you hold yourself to.
Yeah, it really is something, which brings me to your Substack. And for people who don't know what Substack is, you just go to substack.com and figure it out. I've got one too. I'm not saying this to promote mine. I will promote yours gladly. But it's just such an interesting way for individuals to have their voices heard, and for some really cool viewpoints to be exposed and amplified. So that includes yours. Yours is called BLUF, and that's bottom line up front. How did you come up with that name?
Yeah, look, in the military, we always use the bluff, right? Like we're always trying to, communication's key, and effective communication is always something that's there. And so, I call it the bluff, and it's bottom line up front. Like, here's the takeaways from what I'm trying to get across. Some people like it to be direct. Some people want, the longer form of it. And so, I basically write my articles out. I put them on there, and I talk about everything from leadership to, my take on things. I'm tired of, and pardon my language on this, I'm tired of I call it conversational porn. It's where everybody's out there just throwing eggs at the cars going by. It's everybody's reacting, they're headline chasing. And they're just like, what they're doing is they're literally playing off human beings' emotions. And you read it fires you up, and then you're left with like this. I mean, how many of us leave listening to some of these people talk, and we leave, we're like, just, you walk away feeling horrible, right? Like it's like eating like a sugar high and then walking away, and it's like a sugar high, right? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a longer form content piece. Like every piece that I put out, I talk about what I'm trying to get across. Here's some examples of why I believe this way and why I see it this way, and here's what we can leave with to go do something. So that's why I called it the bluff. It's bottom line up front. So like, you read the article, you can go down the bottom, and it's, somebody pointed out the other day, you get everybody who, the critics, right? But they're like, oh, but you put the bottom line at the end, and it's like, yeah, I want people to read the article. But if you want to go to the bottom, you can take away the 3 to 4 key points that I'm trying to get across. I do believe that now is the time we have to speak up. Me personally, I've had to take a look in the mirror and understand that while I do try to live the best life I can, and I do genuinely love human beings, and I try to be the best person that I can for other people, I have done a disservice by not getting involved in things that I should have gotten involved in. Not speaking up when I should have spoke up. And, and the more I get into the Bible, it talks about how we're called to not, this turn the other cheek. It doesn't mean what we think it is.
What does it mean?
I think it means that it doesn't mean walk away from confrontation. It doesn't mean let things go. It doesn't mean rise above it. It means, turn the other cheek and be ready for another hit. In my mind, this is what I believe it means is turn the other cheek, be prepared for another hit, but make sure you stand your ground and you still speak the word of a good person. You still stand up for what's right. You still say what's right. You don't walk away from it and allow it to still exist. And what we have done is we've taken this and we've allowed this stuff to flourish without saying anything. And now, we have to be honest with it, is there are consequences to it. There are, right? I mean, we all know. You say the wrong thing, you might not be able to eat tomorrow, right? I mean, you might be looking for another job. I mean, people in power that disagree with you, they will use that power to weaponize it against you. So I wanted to build out a platform, and Substack has allowed me to do this, for where I can talk in longer forms, not just using my social media, not just getting on a quick news hit, reacting to something that's going on and being part of the echo chambers of saying and arguing. I wanted to empower people, true empowerment, not make them feel like everything sucks and like there's nothing they can do to make it better. I wanted to empower people with what I believe, tools that I use to make the world a better place.
We need tons of this, and the more voices, the better. I have always said the more voices, the better. You do take on leadership, and you did it earlier here in this podcast when you said that some of these leaders were cowards. There are so many people trying to work against Secretary Hegseth, it seems to me. A lot of people on the other side, some mistakes that may have happened earlier, and amplifying those to make it seem as though he is incredibly inept. Again, that same columnist, Peggy Noonan, whom I enjoy reading, but in this particular case, she called him unbelievably paranoid, that he runs around just very paranoid at the Pentagon. This guy is dealing with a lot of wind in his face. How do you think he gets through this?
I mean, he's who he is, right? I mean, he knows what he stands for. He's principally sound. He knows what he stands for. There's, I know Pete. I've known Pete for a long time, and look, none of us are perfect. You think of that. We all have stuff that we hope we never have to face in the face of the nation, right? I mean, we all do. We all do. Everyone. There's nobody. I mean, even Peggy. I've never heard of her, but if we dug hard enough on her, I'm sure she would. And you know what? Like hitting at Pete of that he's paranoid. Yeah, I think of all people on the face of the planet. I mean, they just tried to kill our president, our city, like a year ago. They just killed one of the Martin Luther King of our generation. Like they just shot him, Charlie Kirk. I think that of all people, the people in the cabinet, the people in this administration, Secretary Hegseth, rightfully so, we would all be paranoid if we took on a tenth of what that man was facing every single day. And I'll be transparent with you. When I love Pete. When I heard initially that he was going, could be the Secretary of War, Defense at the time, I didn't know what to think. I mean, I didn't know what to think. I was like, gosh, is he ready for that? I questioned it. I gotta say this though, 6 to 8 months looking in, thank God he got it. Thank God he did it. He's done an incredible job. I talk to him all the time. He's done an incredible job. What he's doing. I mean, the rejuvenation inside of our troops on the ground. Not these generals. Like whatever. They're not having to go out and fight and face the enemy. I'll tell you this though. You don't know how many times I walk and people come up to me and they go, "Hey, if you see a Secretary of War, like let him know we appreciate everything that he's doing and what he's saying." And so I think that Secretary Hegseth is going to be just fine. I think he's going to continue to push on and do what's right because he's not looking to the left and right to see what the opinions of others are. He is foundationally sound into what he knows needs to be done for the guys on the ground. And it is going to, I think I'm going to say this today and people can, say whatever, but I think he's going to be remembered as the greatest Secretary of War, Defense, whatever, in the history that we've ever seen and at a time that we needed more than ever.
Well, it's interesting to me because some people might read it as paranoia. What I see out of this administration and every cabinet member, quite frankly, is a sense of urgency, a sense of there is no time to waste. The amount of stuff, if we just listed out everything that has gotten done in the first year of this presidency, it is insanely remarkable. Like it's crazy. And there are people who don't like some of it. I don't think anyone's ever going to be 100% in agreement with any administration, but it has been constructive and proactive and peace-seeking and successful. And so, for anyone to say people are running around looking over their shoulder, I think people are running around looking for answers, looking for solutions, trying to bring peace to the world, safety to the United States, and a sense of well-being here. I want to get again to BLUF, to your Substack. You talk a lot about PTSD, and this is a real thing. And I've been thinking about it, Dakota, in the context of these hostages that are coming home from Hamas captivity, and that it is great that they've been released, and all of that is great. What they are going to experience for the rest of their lives is not to be underestimated. It's a lot like what you and troops and people who've lived through war experience for the rest of their lives. How would you describe what PTSD can do to a human?
Well, yeah, I do. I speak a lot about mental health. I speak a lot about PTSD, depression, anxiety. They're all kind of wrapped up in one, you know what I mean? One that plays off the other and all of that. So what I think, yes, I mean, I think they've got a lot of healing to do. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't fathom it. I mean, it's almost Holocaust style, at that level of trauma that that they're facing, like with the horrors they've seen. But I think PTSD does one or two things to you. It is either going to be, it's going to be your excuse for the rest of your life. It's your obstacle. It's going to be your safety valve. Or you see a lot is you see PTSD being your fuel to go out and be an experience for you to go and your story to go tell others of why we got to get it right, why this matters, why we have to go against these radical ideologies and we can't have an open border allowing these enemies to come inside of our, why we have to be strong, why we need a Secretary of War that is going to be aggressive in order to fight this type of evil. There's only one way to get rid of this evil. You don't negotiate with it, you only kill it. And so, I think that these people, I couldn't imagine what they've dealt with or what they've gone through. I couldn't be more thankful that they're home now. They got released, and now it's time for them to start healing. But I do believe that at some point they're going to start using their stories as a reminder as to that this evil does exist, that it is real, just because it's not on our soil. And so, I talk a lot about PTSD, depression, and anxiety, and it's something that's across the world right now. It's not just inside of our military. It's not just inside of victims like this. It's in our everyday households, right? And so, but what I do believe about them is, unless you're born with it, unless unless it's like a chemical imbalance or something like that is on the nature side, I do believe that they are all injuries and not terminal illnesses.
That it would be great to see mental health get the kind of attention that it needs in this country. We see there is no way that some of the acts that we see in this country are coming out of the minds and bodies of mentally sane people. There's just no way that a sane person shoots up a bunch of children in a church. That's not sanity. That is mental illness. I would say the same for the person who thought it was a good idea to assassinate Charlie Kirk. I don't think you can be sane unless you're sane and you're evil. And you're right. I continue to talk to people who have walked in your shoes or similar, that evil is real. And I do believe there's evil on our soil, Dakota. I do believe that evil has infiltrated the United States of America, and it's bubbling. And we see kind of two forces pulling at one another right now. One is sort of everyone is Charlie Kirk, and this growing group of young people who want to carry on, I think, the good that Charlie was doing in America. And then you see this growing group, also seemingly young people, who are pro-Palestinian, which is not bad in and of itself, but they are anti-Semitic. They want socialism in the United States. They want a small group of people to take over the means of production. I'm, of course, talking about Zohar Andani in New York. And he's not alone. There are a growing number. I mean, Ilhan Omar, I live in Minnesota. She represents us in Congress, and it's devastating to see the way that she speaks about people and about humanity and about America. Frankly.
She represents not Minnesota. She represents Muslim extremists.
Well, there you go. And there are enough of them, I guess, in Minnesota to vote her in, which is why I say, we are not out of the woods. But these two forces are sort of pulling at one another. How does the good side win?
And this is where we're messing up. So you're right. I believe there's only two types of people that walk the face of the planet, and it's good and evil. And usually they're rooted back into beliefs. I've seen this on the battlefield all the way up to face with people who didn't believe that they were wrong. And so, you have to really kill these extremist ideologies, and you have to measure like what is good and evil, right? Good and evil. It's not definitely, it's not necessarily disagreeing, but it's about what the intentions of that human being is. And it's about what they intend to do. And people who intend to hurt other people are evil. Hard stop. and there's only one way to get rid of that, and that's to kill them. And so, I look at these things, and I just think that the only way that you do it, and I do think this is where people are messing up today, is everybody just wants to point out what they don't like and what they don't agree with. But the only way you truly win this is you out-message it on why what you believe is better. That's how you win it. Like, you don't win it. Like, you look at it, and I think about this a lot, about arguments or fights or whatever. Look, love always wins against hate. And it can go further, and people fight for it. So what you believe in, you will always fight for, and it will always prevail over what you're against. Always. The offense will always go against the defense. So what I think we're doing wrong right now is that everybody, again, like I stated earlier, is in this conversational porn of where they just want to emotionally react to everything. And do you ever get anywhere just reacting? No, you don't. But that's how the entire media news network is going, is let's react to this, let's react to this, let's react to this, because it gives you that fight or flight. It's almost like PTSD across human beings of emotionally getting them jacked up like you get inside of war or any other conflict, and then, rolling on with it. And they're just doing it over and over. It's why reality TV and all these things are prevailing, because it's giving people this social media. It's giving them this high. It's almost PTSD in itself. And so I think that what we've got to do is we've got to get into this mindset of what can we do? Because it's going to start with personal responsibility. Like that speech that Secretary of War gave the other day, and I mentioned this on my Substack. That's not a speech that just needed to be given to the military. That is a speech that needs to be given in every household across the nation. That is a fact. Accountability, doing what's right, quit holding other people to a standard you don't hold yourself to. That's called hypocrisy. All of these things are crushing us, and you look at this, people don't want to fill their role. They want the title, but they don't want the responsibility. I mean, talk about it. I mean, how many people do you know that they say, and this is the best example I got, I just want to be friends with my kids. Like my kid's my best friend. You hear that, right?
I've heard that, and I've told my kids from the very beginning, I love you, and I want to have fun with you, but my job is to parent you.
Your responsibility.
And so there are going to be a lot of things you don't like that I say, but you're going to think. Thank me later, I hope.
Well, it's your responsibility, right?
It is. It's your job.
Yep. And it's what they need you to be, maybe not what they want you to be. And so, but again, like, you look at people, and again, it starts at home. You look at people who want to be friends with their kids turn out to be shitheads. All of them. And so it's like, we have got to be who we need to be, not who we want to be. And we've got to start being on the proactive side of that, instead of just sitting back and pointing out everything. And it's kind of crazy. I reference everything back to the Bible, right? And I go back and I try to use it as much as I can. And I try to go find and search for those answers in it. And it talks about every bit of what we're facing right now. I mean, it's humans are humans, but we've got to out-message it. And so to answer your question with obviously my long answer, pointing out what's wrong and what we don't like is going to get us, it's going to keep doing what we're doing right now. We've got to out-message it. We've got to out-message this evil. Yes, this evil's here. 100% the evil's here. But it's always been here. It's been here since day one. But good we've got to start using our voices. Not only do we have to live with actions, but we have to use our voices. We have to stop walking past problems that we can change and that we can fix and that we can redirect. And we've got to have the courage to do it. And at the end of the day, everyone's not going to like you. But the reality is everyone doesn't like you already. Yeah. So go ahead and choose your hard, but we've got to. It starts with looking in the mirror. And, I write on my mirror once a week. I write on my mirror, I rewrite it. And I do it Sunday nights, and it says, what did you expect? So every morning when I look in the mirror before I leave, and every morning I come home before I go to bed, I look in the mirror and I'm looking at myself and I say, what did you expect? All the things going wrong or all the bad stuff that happened, what did you really expect? Like, did you do everything you could? Was it you or was it them, right? And usually it's me. It was my expectations. It was my thoughts. It was my mindset. It was me going down a road that I knew I shouldn't have done. It was, you know what I mean? It's usually all me looking in the mirror of who should take the responsibility of letting these types of people around me, of all that. And, you know, and it's like, it's usually me and it's stuff I can control. And we've got to truly empower people to understand that they can make decisions. I will tell you this, and I believe this with every moral fiber of my being. I don't believe that we have a problem in the world today that we cannot lead ourselves out of.
I love that optimism. And I agree with you. It's the issue is coming together to find that way out of these problems and having the courage to overcome the impediments, having the courage to use the obstacles in our favor and as a way to solve those problems. I love that. I love that way of thinking. And that you can get more of that, folks, when you go to his Substack. So go to Substack and look for BLUF, BLUF, Bottom Line Up Front by Dakota Meyer. I'm excited for you. I hope this just takes off, and I'm sure that certainly within the military community it will, but I hope beyond that as well. Dakota, it's so wonderful to meet you. I hope we can do it again.
Thank you so much.
I always say at the end of my podcast, be brave and do good. And clearly Dakota has done that, continues to do that. And I urge everyone else listening to do the same. Just have your courage and put it in a positive motion. And with that, we'll see you next time. You can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.